The initial encounter. The unexpected resilience. General GX's eyes went wide as another human soldier rose from the dead. GX had put a plasma bolt through the human's skull himself, but impossibly, it stood back up, grabbed its weapon, and opened fire. GX ducked behind the smoking remains of his dropship. The planet was supposed to be an easy conquest, rich in rare metals and populated by primitive aliens. However, the humans resisted like no species GX had faced in his long career. Their weapons damaged Carrack ships, and their soldiers took fatal wounds and kept fighting. His battalion was pinned down, taking heavy losses. If GX failed to secure a foothold, the humans would have time to form a coordinated planetary defense. The Carrack Empire needed this planet's resources to feed its growing war machine. GX had to break the human defenses here and now. The command. GX growled into his community. All forces, advance. Burn their primitive huts to ash. Show them the might of the Carrack Empire. The Carrack soldiers surged forward, their plasma rifles unleashing searing bolts of energy. Humans scattered before the onslaught, many cut down where they stood. Smoking craters pockmarked the earth where plasma fire had struck home. Yet, as quickly as the humans fell, more emerged from the rubble to take their place. They moved with a fluid coordination, adapting and reacting to the Carrack's every move. At their head was a grizzled, battle-scarred human that the galaxy's intelligence reports had identified as Captain Marcus Reynolds. The leader. Reynolds barked orders to his troops, directing their fire and movements with the ease of a seasoned commander. Under his guidance, the humans began to turn the tide of the battle. They used the planet's rocky terrain to their advantage, ducking behind boulders and into ravines to evade the Carrack's plasma fire. GX watched in disbelief as a group of humans set up a makeshift trap, luring a squad of his soldiers into a narrow canyon before triggering a rock slide that buried the Carrack alive. Another group of humans ambushed a Carrack patrol from the ruins of a bombed-out building, catching the soldiers off guard and decimating their numbers. The unbelievable, impossible, GX muttered. These primitives should be cowering before us, not fighting back with such tenacity. He slammed a fist against the side of his dropship, denting the metal. GX had not risen to the rank of general by accepting defeat. He would crush these humans no matter the cost. The push forward. All units pressed the attack. GX roared into his comm. We will not be beaten by these savages. The Carrack Empire will have this planet. The Carrack soldiers redoubled their efforts, pushing forward with renewed ferocity. Plasma bolts filled the air as the two sides clashed in a brutal melee. Amidst the chaos, GX caught a glimpse of Captain Reynolds, the human's face set in grim determination as he rallied his troops. The human met GX's gaze across the battlefield, and for a moment, the two commanders locked eyes, each recognizing the other as a worthy adversary. Then the moment passed, and the battle raged on, the fate of the planet hanging in the balance. The human strategy. The tactical genius. The battle raged on, plasma bolts scorching the air and explosions shaking the ground. Amidst the chaos, Commander THX approached General GX, his face grim. General, I have troubling news, TX said, his voice barely audible over the din of combat. Our scouts have reported that the humans have captured several of our soldiers. They're studying our technology and biology as we speak. GX's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on his plasma rifle. They dare lay their filthy hands on Carrack warriors. He growled, his voice dripping with rage. They will pay for this insolence. The full-scale assault. The general turned to face his troops, his voice booming across the battlefield. All units prepare for a full-scale assault on the human stronghold. We will crush their resistance and show them the true might of the Carrack Empire. The Carrack soldiers let out a roar of approval, their weapons glowing with renewed energy. They surged forward, their movements more coordinated and precise than before. They had learned from their earlier encounters with the humans, adapting their tactics to counter the defenders' guerrilla warfare. The stronghold defense. As the Kerek troops approached the human stronghold, they encountered a maze of fortifications and barricades. The humans had used the remnants of their destroyed buildings to create a formidable defensive perimeter, complete with trenches and gun emplacements. The Kerek soldiers unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, their weapons tearing through the human defenses like paper. The air was thick with the stench of burning metal and charred flesh as the Kerek troops breached the stronghold's walls. The fierce resistance. But the humans were far from defeated. As the Kerek soldiers poured into the stronghold, they were met with fierce resistance. The humans fought with a savagery that caught the Kerek off guard, their primitive weapons proving surprisingly effective in close quarters. GX watched in disbelief as his soldiers struggled to subdue the human defenders. The Kerek were stronger, faster, and better equipped, but the humans fought with a tenacity that bordered on madness. They hurled themselves at the Kerek troops, their eyes blazing with a feral intensity. The captain's rally. In the heart of the stronghold, Captain Reynolds rallied his troops, his voice rising above the chaos. "Stand firm, men," he shouted, his rifle spitting fire into the Kerek ranks. "We will not let these invaders take our home." The humans let out a battle cry, their spirits lifted by their captain's words. They fought with renewed vigor, their bullets and blades finding their marks with deadly precision. The duel. GX found himself locked in combat with a human soldier, the man's face contorted in a snarl of rage. The human was no match for GX's strength, but he fought with a ferocity that caught the general off guard. GX struggled to block the human's blows, his armor denting under the force of the man's strikes. As the battle wore on, the Kerek soldiers began to falter, their ranks thinning under the relentless human assault. GX could see the fear in his soldiers' eyes, the realization that they had underestimated the humans' resolve. The turning point. The face-off. GX found himself face to face with the human captain, Marcus Reynolds. Reynolds held a modified Kerek plasma rifle, the barrel glowing an ominous red. The human must have scavenged it off a fallen soldier and tinkered with its inner mechanisms. "Surrender now, and your death will be quick," GX bellowed, leveling his own rifle at Reynolds. The human's lips curled into a defiant smirk. "I don't think so. Ugly. This is our home, our land, and we'll fight to the last man to defend it." The duel of wills. With those words, Reynolds squeezed the trigger. A pulsing beam of plasma shot from the barrel, barely missing GX's head. The Kerek general felt the heat of the beam as it singed his skin. These humans had already figured out their weapons and adapted them for their own use. GX returned fire, his shots sizzling against the concrete rubble Reynolds used for cover. The human was quick, ducking and weaving between shots. It was like trying to hit a fleeting shadow. The tenacity. All around them, the battle rage. Human defenders crouched in the ruins of their city, using the wreckage to their advantage. They popped off shots at the Kerek soldiers, then disappeared back into the shadows. GX saw one of his own warriors take a bullet to the head, his helmet shattering like glass. Reynolds dashed to new cover, never stopping in one place for more than a heartbeat. GX had to admit, the human was a skilled fighter. But it was more than that. The captain fought with a passion, a fire that GX had never seen before. This wasn't just a battle to the human, it was personal. The question, why do you resist? GX shouted over the crack of gunfire. You only delay the inevitable. The Kerek Empire will claim this world and 1,000 more. Reynolds popped up from behind an overturned vehicle, his expression hard as stone. You'll never understand, will you? This is our home, our people. We won't let you enslave us, won't let you strip away our freedom. We'll fight you to the end, no matter the cost. The realization. The human's words struck a chord in GX. He faltered, his finger easing off the trigger. For a moment, he saw the battle through Reynolds' eyes. He saw his own soldiers not as glorious warriors, but as brutal invaders, conquerors. The Kirak Empire preached about the superiority of their species, the manifest destiny to rule the stars. But looking at these humans, at the raw courage and determination etched on their faces, GX felt doubt gnawing at his gut. These humans weren't fighting for glory or riches. They fought for their homes, their families, their very way of life. Could the same be said for him? For any Kirak soldier? The clash. Reynolds met GX's advance, the humans' modified weapons spitting plasma. The air between them filled with scorching light and sizzling ozone. This was a duel between commanders, a clash of wills as much as weapons. Soldier against soldier, Kirak against human. And deep in his heart, GX began to wonder if his species was fighting for the wrong reasons altogether. The surrender, GX's plasma rifle clattered to the ground, the sound echoing across the battlefield. The Kirak general raised his hands in a gesture of surrender, his voice booming over the chaos. Kirak soldiers, stand down. Lower your weapons. The Kirak troops hesitated, their eyes darting between GX and the human defenders. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to comply, their plasma rifles powering down with a whine. The standoff. Captain Reynolds emerged from cover, his modified Kirak weapon still trained on GX. The human's face was a mask of suspicion and disbelief. What game are you playing, GX? Is this some kind of trick? GX met Reynolds' gaze, his expression weary but resolute. No trick, human. I am surrendering. I have seen the truth of your words. The Kirak Empire is wrong. Our conquest, our subjugation of other species, is a path to ruin. The alliance proposal. Reynolds approached cautiously, his finger still on the trigger. Around them, the battle had stilled, both human and Kirak soldiers watching the exchange with bated breath. Too late for a sudden change of heart, Reynolds asked, his voice gruff. You seemed pretty damn committed to wiping us out a few minutes ago. GX sighed, his shoulders slumping. I have harbored doubts for a long time, human, doubts about the Empire's ways. But I buried them, convinced myself that we were in the right, that it was our destiny to rule. He gestured to the ruined city around them, the smoke and rubble. But this battle has opened my eyes. You humans fight not for glory or power, but for your very survival, your freedom. And I realize now that is a far nobler cause than anything the Kirak fight for. The tentative trust. Reynolds lowered his weapon slightly, his brow furrowed. So what now? You just surrender, and we all go our separate ways. GX shook his head. No, I have a proposal. An alliance between our species. Together, we could challenge the Kirak Emperor, overthrow his tyrannical regime. We could build a new order in the galaxy, one based on cooperation and mutual respect, not conquest and oppression. The skepticism. The human captain barked a laugh. You really expect me to trust you after everything your kind has done? How do I know this isn't some ploy to get us to lower our guard? GX met Reynolds' eyes, his gaze unwavering. I know trust must be earned, human. I do not expect it to come easily or quickly, but I am willing to take the first step. He reached to his belt, unclipping a small device. He tossed it to Reynolds. This contains all the intelligence I have on Kirak troop movements, supply lines, and weak points. Use it as you see fit. The decision. Reynolds caught the device, turning it over in his hands. He looked back at GX, his expression still guarded, but a flicker of something else in his eyes. Respect, perhaps, or the beginnings of understanding. I'll consider your proposal, the human said at last. But I make no promises, and if I suspect for a moment that you're playing us false. He let the threat hang in the air. GX nodded solemnly. I would expect nothing less. He turned to his soldiers, raising his voice. Kirak, we will be the Emperor's slaves no longer. Today, we forge a new path, side by side with our human brothers and sisters. The unexpected outcome. A murmur rippled through the Kirak ranks, a mix of shock and tentative hope. They had followed GX this far. They would follow him still, even into this strange new future. As the smoke began to clear and the soldiers on both sides lowered their weapons, GX and Reynolds stood face to face, the seeds of an impossible alliance taking root. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, paved with mistrust and old wounds, but for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance for a better tomorrow. The gesture of unity. The Kerek general and the human captain clasped arms, a gesture of respect between warriors, a gesture of unity between species. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. Building the alliance. The first steps. In the days following the ceasefire, both human and Kerek forces began to work together, cautiously at first, but with growing trust and camaraderie. The human engineers marveled at the advanced technology of the Kerek, while the Kerek soldiers were impressed by the humans' ingenuity and resourcefulness. The planning. GX and Reynolds spent long hours in strategic meetings, planning their next moves. They knew that to overthrow the Kerek Emperor, they would need to gather allies from other oppressed species and launch a coordinated assault on the Kerek homeworld. The intelligence. The information GX had provided proved invaluable. Human and Kerek forces used it to conduct a series of successful raids on Kerek supply lines, crippling the Emperor's ability to wage war. These victories boosted morale and strengthened the growing alliance. The message. Reynolds recorded a message to be broadcast across the galaxy, calling on other species to join their cause. He spoke of freedom, justice, and the hope of a new era of peace and cooperation. The response was overwhelming. Ships and soldiers from dozens of species arrived, ready to fight for a common goal. The unity. As the alliance grew, so did the bond between GX and Reynolds. They shared stories of their respective cultures, finding common ground in their values and aspirations. GX began to understand the depth of the humans' determination and resilience, while Reynolds came to appreciate the Kerek's sense of honor and duty. The final preparations. With their forces gathered, the Allied commanders made their final preparations for the assault on the Kerek homeworld. They knew the battle would be fierce and the stakes high, but they were united in their resolve to end the Emperor's tyranny once and for all. The assault on the Kerek homeworld. The invasion begins. The Allied fleet dropped out of hyperspace, the swirling vortex collapsing behind them as the Kerek homeworld loomed ahead. GX stood on the bridge of the flagship, his jaw set as he took in the sight of the heavily fortified planet. The attack. All units, prepare for landing, GX ordered. Remember, we fight not just for ourselves, but for the future of the galaxy. The fleet descended through the atmosphere, dodging anti-aircraft fire as they approached the planet's surface. The Allied forces hit the ground running, engaging the Kerek defenders in a series of brutal skirmishes. The resistance. The Kerek Emperor had anticipated their arrival and prepared his troops accordingly. The fighting was intense, with heavy casualties on both sides. But the Allies pressed on, driven by the knowledge that their cause was just. The turning point. In the heart of the Kerek capital, GX and Reynolds led a daring assault on the Emperor's palace. They fought their way through the labyrinthine corridors, facing wave after wave of elite guards. At last, they reached the throne room, where the Emperor awaited them. The confrontation. The Kerek Emperor was a towering figure, his presence commanding and intimidating. He sneered at the sight of GX and Reynolds standing side by side. "You dare to challenge me?" the Emperor thundered. "You, a traitor to your kind. And you, a mere human." The challenge. GX stepped forward, his voice steady and resolute. "You have ruled through fear and oppression for too long. The galaxy deserves better. We are here to end your reign." The Emperor laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "You are fools. You think you can defeat me. I will crush you and your pathetic alliance." The final battle. With a roar, the Emperor lunged at them, wielding a massive energy blade. GX and Reynolds fought with everything they had, their movements synchronized as they defended against the Emperor's relentless attacks. The battle was fierce, but the Allies' combined strength began to wear the Emperor down. The victory. At last, with a final, coordinated strike, GX and Reynolds brought the Emperor to his knees. The once mighty ruler of the Carrack Empire lay defeated, his reign of terror at an end. The new era. As news of the Emperor's fall spread, the remaining Carrack forces surrendered. The Allied commanders stood together on the steps of the palace, their victory a testament to the power of unity and cooperation. A new era had begun, one where species of the galaxy could live in peace and mutual respect. The rebuilding. The aftermath. In the weeks and months that followed, the Allied forces worked tirelessly to rebuild the galaxy. They established a new council, with representatives from each species, to ensure that all voices were heard and respected. The peace. GX and Reynolds continued to work together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. They traveled to different worlds, spreading the message of peace and cooperation, and helping to resolve conflicts before they could escalate into violence. The legacy. Their efforts bore fruit. The galaxy began to heal, the scars of war slowly fading as species learned to trust and support one another. GX and Reynolds became symbols of hope and unity, their story an inspiration to all who heard it. The future. As they stood on the bridge of their ship, looking out at the stars, GX turned to Reynolds. "We did it, my friend. We changed the galaxy." Reynolds smiled, clapping GX on the shoulder. "We did it together. And we'll keep fighting for a better future, no matter what comes our way." The journey continues. The road ahead was still long and fraught with challenges, but GX and Reynolds faced it with courage and determination. They had proven that even the greatest of enemies could become the closest of allies, and that the bonds forged in the heat of battle could withstand any test.